Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we look at the highs and the lows from the Premier League weekend just past. Joining me on today's stellar episode, it's David Jackson, it's William Brazier, the Football Social Boys are back in town. The show was cancelled, but the banter rolls on. David, how was your weekend, mate?
The boys are back in town. I am absolutely over the moon. Arsenal have won. Spring is here. Vaccines are being handed out. It is the end of coronavirus. We're not quite there yet, but I feel like the end is near. Positivity is in the air. Arsenal have won. Spurs obviously lost. What a fantastic time to be alive. 2021 is our year.
Love that positivity. Of course, we'll be talking about the game in just a second, so hold your horses, David Jackson, because bringing up the rear, it's Will Brazier. How was your weekend, mate?
What an introduction that is. Yeah, fantastic. Get the call about 10 to 9. Tomlinson's gone down in the warm-up with a dicky tummy. I said, who's involved? Hamill, I'm there. Dave Jackson, count me in. When does it start?
Yeah, love that. You know, Zach and Tomlinson decided to book Monday off for the second week running, starting to question their commitment to the channel, to be perfectly honest. I've spoke to the board. I've asked them for a permanent deal for Will Brazier, at least an 18-month contract. But you know what? Yet to hear back from them. But, you know, talking of lucrative contracts, let's plug our good friends over at Manscaped, who are sponsoring Winners and Losers until the end of the season. Love that from them. And what I wanted to ask you boys, I don't want to plug Manscaped like we normally do. I want to mix it up. I want to show the brand that we care. What I wanted to ask you boys before we kick things off, right? I've picked two things at random from my Manscaped package. Jackson, if you had to choose one of these, what would you go for? The ball wipes with active pH control or the foot deodorant? I'm going to send these out to the pair of you. Got to choose at your own discretion. What are you saying?
I think it'd have to be the ball wipes, to be honest.
Yeah, especially after that North London derby, mate. Right, they're in the post
Sweaty.
for you.
Love that.
The foot deodorant's coming over I was going to say to Birmingham for you. Don't think you're in Birmingham anymore, Will. But maybe someone will pick that up in Birmingham. Right, if you want 20% off Manscaped's stellar products, then click the link in the description below or use the code on screen now. And if you've already done it, we do really appreciate it. It directly funds all your favourite shows like Winners and Losers, Sunday Vibes, and hopefully the return of Stat Wars. Who knows? Little put out some bait there. Anyways, moving on. Let's move on, to the talking point, which is North London is red. Wow. And David, prior to this game, Arsenal hadn't beaten Tottenham in 5 fixtures. Just before kick-off, it's announced that captain Aubameyang has been dropped for disciplinary reasons. And I know he struggled at points in this season, 4 goals, but he netted 6 in 6 starts going into this. What is going through your head, 15 minutes prior to kick-off when you hear this sort of news?
I have got nothing but respect for Mikel Arteta for doing that. I think he needs to keep the standards high because I think that's how you allow a bad culture to really set in. Aubameyang is our senior statesman. He is our club captain. And I think he should be setting the standard, particularly because it is a very young squad. I would prefer Aubameyang to be in the starting 11 and not messing about with his bloody Lamborghini or whatever it is. But the fact that he's been told to be obviously at the training ground or at the Emirates at a particular time, and he's chosen to be late. And from what I understand as well, this wasn't the first occasion. As I say, I've got nothing but respect for Arteta for doing it because it was definitely brave, right? He's I believe he's our top goal scorer, even though he hasn't had the best of seasons, but he is still our number one striker. As I say, he's our club captain. And it was very brave of him to do that. And I was even more happy that his decision to do that was vindicated, right? Because we obviously won the game. So I was definitely nervous when I found that out. But also for the long term, kind of culture that we're trying to build there for the long term, health of the club. I think it's important that we keep standards high and that nobody's bigger than the club, nobody's bigger than the team, right? You play for the badge on your chest. You're not playing for yourself. So I definitely respected it.
Yeah, I knew you'd be on side with that decision. All about the collective. And to be honest, it didn't look like it was going to come back to bite him at any point in the game. I know you went 1-0 down, courtesy of that disgusting Rabona, but Arsenal pretty dominant throughout this tie. 5 shots in the first 25 minutes to no reply. Of course, Smith Rowe saw that effort thunder back off the crossbar. You went in at 1-1 after Odegaard. His scuffed effort sort of trickled past Lurie, didn't it? But a thoroughly deserved scoreline. And I've got to say, Dave, by 45 minutes, were you pleased with the performance? Did you feel like Arsenal would go on to snatch all 3 points?
No, I really did. I thought we started the game really well. I thought that we had really, really good shape. This is the thing, when we start with Lacazette, it sounds strange to say, and hear me out, but we actually look a better team. Because he's much more aggressive with his pressing. Aubameyang will do the running. And if you're asking me if it's one decision, either Aubameyang or Lacazette, I would prefer Aubameyang just because of the fact that his finishing is far superior to Lacazette. But what I would say is the shape that we play and the way that we started the game is always better when Lacazette is at the frontal point of our attack, because then it allows players like Saka, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, they kind of know what they need to do at that point, right? And it's all good, like saying that we're going to press a team, but you have to be able to press a team in an aggressive manner where you're actually forcing them into errors, which is what Lacazette is very, very good at. What was it? Until they had that first shot on goal, there was only really one team in it, and even up until we scored the equaliser, I thought that, despite we were losing, I was like, I'm actually quite happy with this actual performance. But then, kind of like the longer that goes on and you haven't scored, you maybe start to think, is this actually going to be our day? But I thought we fully deserved to be at the very least drawing at half time. And at half time, I was very confident that we would go on and at least score one, potentially 2 goals. And as I say, other than that very fluky goal from that, wasn't a fluky goal, it was a very, very good goal from that Spurs. That was the only real danger. And in terms of the actual game as a whole, up until they had the player sent off, like we were absolutely brilliant. And then it seemed once they got the player sent off, we seemed to just fall apart a little bit, where like they kind of lost a bit of their composure. I think they maybe started to play with their heart a little bit rather than their head, and it's in their moments where I thought players like David Luiz were absolutely fantastic, where they would just go, kind of particularly with the younger players, just going, this game isn't won yet, but it's going to be one if we do the fundamentals right, if we keep the football well, if we don't panic, if we don't give away cheap free kicks. That last 5 minutes, some of the free kicks we were giving away, and it looked like that was the only way that they were going to score, either a really nice ball into the box, a Harry Kane header, or a Harry Kane free kick. So it was extremely worrying that last 5 minutes, because it was all our undoing. It wasn't like they were playing fantastic football, passing between our lines or anything like that. It was us giving away really, really cheap free kicks, and then them, because they would have had a bit of quality, as much as that pains me to say, and that you were just kind of hoping at the end that they weren't going to make us pay for it. But very, very happy with the overall 90 minutes, despite that mental last 5-10 minutes, and I thought we fully deserved to win that game.
Yeah, like you just said there, you nullified Tottenham for 80 minutes, a little bit of a cavalier last 10, but I mean, Jose Mourinho pretty much put out his strongest side in this game. No real selection headaches, and of course it's been quite clear that Gareth Bale is feeling a lot fitter of late. He's had a bit of a mid-season renaissance, hasn't he? And even with his strongest attacking lineup out and Gareth Bale approaching, something that resembles his best at this point in his career, Arsenal nullified them pretty effectively, Will. What is it at the moment that Spurs are struggling with, and what did you sort of notice, in this game?
It's sort of Jekyll and Hyde, really, isn't it? I think that's shown in that game as well, where they didn't really turn up until they went down to 10 men, and I think that's more probably because psychologically Arsenal were sort of thinking like we're on the verge of winning a North London derby here, which they hadn't done in 5 or 6 games. And especially with like the younger players, like Dave said, maybe that sort of fear set in, and that's where Spurs sort of pounce. But it's just no identity still about them, is there? Even under Jose Mourinho after a year and a bit now, and just when you think they're going in the right direction and they pull up trees against the likes of Burnley. Well, I don't know what size tree that is, but it's not the biggest. They go and lose a game where going into it you'd expect them to win. So it's just the same old Mourinho, isn't it? I think we're in the stage 6 of Mourinho sort of phase when he goes out of the club. So I think we've gone past the denial phase, blaming players phase. I think we're into the referees yesterday. So.
Any sympathy with him? Obviously, Son had to come off after 20 minutes with a muscle injury, which is pretty unsurprising at this point, given he's started every Premier League game. This, of course, meant that Kane had less of a reference point, didn't he? Only one touch in the opposition box. Any sympathy there, or You know, are you still looking at opening 25 minutes thinking, even with Son on the pitch, pretty ineffective?
Not really. If they want to challenge on Champions League fronts and play Saturday, Tuesday or Sunday, Wednesday every week, they're going to have to deal with the likes of Kane going out or Son going out, which they've never been able to do really. And yesterday was another symptom of that. Even though, I mean, Lamela came on and scored that Rabona, but then it all fell away, didn't it?
Dave, what about the job that Kieran Tierney did and Gareth Bale then? 0 tackles, 0 dribbles, 0 chances created for the Welshman. Safe to say that he was absolutely pocketed before he was hauled off. What are we saying about the Scotsman?
No, I think it wasn't even just Kieran Tierney, who I thought was fantastic. I thought that Cedric was just as good on the right, and I think that was part of how we managed to nullify their attack, because we were trying to push them forward. To be fair, Bale gave their right back absolutely no support whatsoever. All right. But
Which is a nightmare when you got Tierney bombing on as well, right?
Yeah, and obviously Smith Rowe played particularly well, and they played really well together. And one of the things I did notice as well was obviously because our wing backs played so well in terms of Cedric and Kieran Tierney, right? That pushed their centre halves into positions that they didn't want to be in, right? Which means that they weren't quite as solid through the middle, which means our kind of like midfield players or like our kind of forwards had a bit more space to then kind of exploit them, which means we were just that the whole machine just seemed to work yesterday. And it all came from the way that our wing backs they didn't just get wide, which is half the battle. They were wide and they're actually exploiting space, which is something that I don't think Arsenal have done as well as they should have, considering we have such good wide players at our disposal, you know, kind of like a Pepe and and kind of stuff like that. So I thought it was extremely good tactics from Arteta to exploit where they could be exploited. And then obviously we created space where there was space to be created. And then I think particularly that first 75 minutes, we were very good in possession. And it wasn't just possession where we kind of had it. We're actually very effective with it, and we were very probing with it, and we were passing into space and we were creating space. So I think how we nullified them was we were far superior with the ball in key areas. That kind of made them reevaluate how they were going to play.
Yeah, you didn't really play into their hands, did you?
No.
Their strength has been breaking at speed this season, right? Because they don't seek to control a game. But I did notice, Gabriel Magalhaes winning an awful lot of balls on the halfway line.
He was brilliant yesterday, I thought. Yeah, he was
block as well at the end.
Yeah.
The management from Xhaka and Partey, game management was class. I think 11 defensive, 11 tackles and interceptions between them. They just filled in, like when Kieran Tierney forayed forward. The same with Suarez on Partey's side. Yeah, you're right. Just a really good all-round team performance, and Odegaard was boundless amounts of energy, it seemed, up front as well. But
hold on, Chris. I know you like a stat. I've got a little stat here. Smith Rowe created more chances than the whole of the Spurs team yesterday. So there you go.
Woof. Love that.
Does that like win your stat of the week or anything? Do I get like a pair of glasses or anything?
Bit of free ball toner.
Yeah,
now we're talking.
The foot deodorant's yours as well. 2 for 1 after that stat. Let's move on to. Another stat here is that Spurs have now conceded 7 penalties for the season, the most ever by a Jose Mourinho side in the Premier League. So there has been ties, high-profile ties, have been riddled with individual errors, and of course Davinson Sanchez conceding here. Dave, what did you make of it? Was it nailed on for you? Would you have been annoyed if that was given against Arsenal? Because it feels very fraught with indecision around this one.
So if that had been given against my team, I would be absolutely fuming. However, he clearly makes it is a foul. Whether or not the ball has been played, I don't really care. But if that had been given against my team, I would be extremely upset. I'll be extremely upset. But it's nice to see us finally getting a bit of rubber to green this season. There's been so many chances, so many times where we could have had penalties, or for example, even like the David Luiz where he got sent off against Wolves, stuff like that. Where if that could have been seen a different way, he's not sent off, we go on and win that game, etc. So. I'm trying to be as impartial as I've ever been, really.
I appreciate that, mate. I know you struggle with that.
Yeah, so I think it was harsh, and I think Spurs can feel hard done by, but I don't care.
It's just like a Prime Minister's press conference.
Yeah. What did What was your take on it, Will?
I think what's important though, Will, is I think what's important. You see, like the pass from Pepe to get the ball to Lacazette that quickly was absolutely phenomenal. I think that kind of got brushed over with like the, was it or wasn't it a penalty? Yeah.
No, I didn't think it was a penalty, but I mean, the analysis on Match of the Day 2 from Martin Keown was very similar to Dave Jackson's, where he said, I didn't think it was a penalty, but I'm an Arsenal fan, so it was a penalty, so I'll stick with what the pundits say.
Well, it's safe to say that Jose Mourinho disagreed with both of you boys.
I don't want to call it a penalty because it's an offence to the penalties. Worse than our first half, only Michael Oliver and Paul Tierney decision of giving the penalty.
People very damning of the performance in this one, but I think if Spurs had escaped with a 1-1 draw, maybe the majority of the football world would have been forgiving. Lamella's been sent off. They've obviously conceded a contentious penalty, and Son got injured after 20-25 minutes. So I think escaping with a point in the North London derby would have been okay, but the performance, like you pointed out, still pretty poor. So I think until the 71st minute, Spurs had only taken one shot. And that was his first goal against Arsenal, by the way, in 11 outings. And what a way to open his account in the North London derby. It was, with that attacking talent on the pitch, I just couldn't really fathom how ineffective they were. And there was no problem solving on the pitch, was there? It's now their 9th loss of the season, the joint most Mourinho has suffered in a single campaign. And yeah, Kieran Tierney, best left back in the league. There, I said it, better than Luke Shaw. Let's move on. Anyway, winners. Our first winners this week come from William_DJR, and it is Leicester. And we'll make this section nice and quick because it does feel like we're flogging a dead horse with Sheffield United, but still ahead of a tough run that includes Manchester United in the FA Cup and Manchester City in the league. Brendan Rodgers' men consolidated their hunt for Champions League football by thrashing a Chris Wilderless Blades outfit 5-0. Kelechi Ihanacheo scoring his first professional hat-trick, and he's now got 50 goal involvements in 76 starts for Leicester and Manchester City. So I think at 24, still well capable of being more than just a super sub. I am enjoying him getting minutes in this Leicester side. Dave, I want to ask you about Chris Wilder's sacking. Surprised to see him go at this point in the season?
I don't really understand it, to be honest. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Don't get me wrong, results-based business, all that kind of stuff. But I don't really understand the rationale behind it. Like, he's clearly someone who loves that club, done a really good job, and he's someone who could bring them back up. We only to look at what happened to Burnley 5 years ago, wherever it was, when they went down. They stuck with Sean Dyche, now he's brought them back, and now they are an established Premier League club. I think they massively overperformed last season. They've underperformed this season. Clearly, they had an identity, they had a way that they wanted to play, and that was down to the manager. And it'd be different if they would have done it, for example, back in October or November or whatever. Then you're going to give the new manager at least half a chance, right? Or did it kind of at least that you can see some of the rationale and see the thought behind it? But it just seemed like a really poor decision. And I kind of would have backed Chris Wilder to kind of actually bring him back up. I just didn't get it. But that's a decision, and now you kind of got no sympathy when they, potentially don't win another Premier League game again. And then it kind of is what it is.
It's strange though around because you feel like most of it's aimed at the recruiting, which obviously has been bad. But I thought that could have been solved without getting rid of Chris Wilder because I mean, you look at last season with the sort of tactical performances, that's how they got to where they did in the league. And then, as you mentioned, Dave, look at Norwich as well. This year they kept Farke, and they're absolutely flying. They could be on for a 100-point season in the Championship.
Yeah, and it did sound like they were preparing for life in the Championship again. And we have seen the merit of letting a good manager take his team back down, only to come back up again. And Sean Dyche is sort of the prototype for that, I guess. But I feel like it might have been a falling out with the board or a disagreement over future funds that were to be made available in the summer, because it can't really be about performances, given how okay they've been since their return to the Premier League. And we all had them as nailed on relegation fodder last season. They overperformed, but it was going to be the case again this season, right? Maybe some of those forward signings have cost him, but it shouldn't have been enough to cost him his job, is my take on matters. Anyway, let's wrap this section by hearing from the magnanimous Kelechi Ihanacheo.
I'm going to use this opportunity to dedicate this hat-trick to all the mothers in the world. So they should keep taking care of us. I wish them all a happy Mother's Day.
Our losers this week come from Robbie Keeter, and it is Everton, with the Toffees finding themselves in a sticky situation following back-to-back losses in the Premier League. To be honest, included them here as a way of putting some shine on what is a great result for Burnley, and the absolute whipper from Dwight McNeil. Will, now in the last 9 Premier League games, they've lost to Newcastle, Fulham and Burnley. What do you put this inconsistency down to? Is it as simple as squad selection?
Yeah, well, I think when you go back to, they had a sticky patch, what was it, around December time, and then they sort of tweaked that formation where they were having really good success with that back five, and Ben Godfrey turning into sort of a mateship left back and really doing well there. Then obviously Luca Dean comes back in, which is absolutely fantastic. But maybe it's down to squad depth, like looking at the team from Saturday as well. It's when they try and especially shuffle the pack with that midfield, they just lose the quality of, I mean, even Gylfi Sigurdsson, which we spoke about before, who many have like scoffed at because of that price tag and not living up to it, but he's been performing really well this season. And when they sort of shuffle the pack, I just don't think it's like that peak 11 which an Everton side are going to suffer with, I think.
Yeah, when I say squad selection, it's pretty much what I mean more so is injuries, right? And like you've just kind of hinted at there, attempting to mask those injuries, like James being out, right, with
that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, by putting the likes of Iwobi in attacking midfield, which happened in this game, and he did okay. 2 chances created, 1 shot, but yeah, no James Rodriguez, and they've sort of had to move away from that really productive 4-3-3, and they've tried all sorts of systems in the last 2 or 3 games to try and plug that talent deficit left by the Colombian, because he's going to be out for another couple of weeks. I think the plan is to return post international break, because they've given him an extended run out of the side, because he was operating at sort of 70-80% in those games against Manchester United and Liverpool, because he's been nursing a calf injury. But even the likes of Decore, I think only he has started 16 plus games in the middle of the park. So that complexion of the midfield, they are struggling with it, are struggling to get all their talent on the pitch at the same time. Jackson, do you think Arsenal can catch the likes of Everton now owing to this tricky run-in?
No, of course. I go into every single game thinking we can win it. I'm not one of these. Like, I saw a lot of particularly members of the Football Daily team yesterday being like, "Oh, I hate bloody Derby Day." I love Derby Day. I love playing Spurs. I go into every game thinking we can win the game. I remember like when we play City, I don't care, because I think on our day we can do it, and that's kind of what I think about this. I think the issue we've got is we're going quite well in the Europa League, so it's whether or not he rests players in the Premier League. But I do believe we can. I believe we can get a decent little run going now between now and the end of the season in the Premier League. It's going to be tough, but we've also got a big squad now, right? And I think it was yesterday, other than Aubameyang's issue with his not being able to turn up on time, we had a fully fit squad, and at this stage of the season, we can't ask for any more than that, right?
Yeah. No,
so yes, I do believe we can catch everyone. I think if Man City
win the league still.
If Man City lose every game now and we win all of ours, we got half a chance.
Love that, the eternal optimist, Dave Jackson. Yeah, I mean, talking of optimism, Burnley can now, I suppose, are feeling a little bit safer. This was not a must-win game, but it certainly makes things a little bit more comfortable down there, doesn't it? Keeps them in 15th, having played 2 more than some of their relegation rivals. I think that's Newcastle and Brighton. Chris Wood getting his 6th goal of the season. McNeil netting his 2nd. I think Chris Wood is their top goal scorer. But yeah, this game pretty adventurous for Burnley. I think they produced 14 attempts, which is 4 or 5 more than they normally do. So practically Samba football from Dyche's men at Goodison. And I think they hit the post, Goodmanson as well. They hit the crossbar, Ben Mee from a corner. So thoroughly deserved 3 points here. Although, it'd be nice to see some more goals from them, wouldn't it? Because they've only netted 22 this campaign, which is 6 fewer than Newcastle. So Burnley fans who have toughed out this season, I think they deserve to see those fantastic strikes in this game. Right, wrapping up the show then, it is moments of the weekend as per usual. Now, the only suggestions for this, gents, because of course you normally pick, was Eric Lamella's Rabona. So if you want to bring anything else to the table, I'm all ears. Starting with you, Will.
Well, I just think we should put some more respect on Dwight McNeil's strike. We sort of glossed over it with a Ben Mee hitting the crossbar. Let's be honest, he's absolutely torn that Everton midfield a new one, and then opened his body up, and Pickford seen it go in the back of the net, and then thought, I'm not having this, and have to substitute himself off. So let's put a bit of respect on Dwight McNeil, future England winger.
I love that. He absolutely sent Alan for a hot dog, didn't he, in the process? The Brazilian been having a tough time with injuries of late, and then, humiliated by Big Dwight. Dave, what about you? Any other moments other than that rip-roarer?
Yeah, I think the Kelechi Ihanacheo interview post-game, I thought that was absolutely fantastic, particularly with the week that the UK have had and the past that Iheanacho has had, for him to kind of dedicate, his hat-trick to all of the mothers around the world. I thought that was a really, really classy touch, and, that was definitely my highlight of the week, apart from Arsenal smashing Spurs.
You know what? I'm going to go with Jackson on that. It was... people just love seeing a bit of humanity, don't they, from footballers at the end of the game, man. He was clearly very emotional in the game as well, and he's really toughed it out at Leicester and waited for his opportunity, because there have been few and far between being behind a certain Jamie Vardy in the pecking order. That is it for this week's Winners and Losers. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to Football Daily right now and turn notifications on to never miss another episode of Winners and Losers. Go and check out some Explained. Will, who are you hunting next? We obviously plugged your Zigic video the last time you were on. Which footballers are you hunting next? And give us any exclusives?
Well, I am starting to hunt down footballers, but I'm also looking at other series as well. This week, I'm trying to bring back LMA Manager, a great manager simulation from the early 90s. Let's bring it back, guys. Let's unite and bring LMA back.
Bit of nostalgia. I probably should have given you some more context around that as well. Will, not hunting footballers for sport, hunting them, to interview.
For the right price.
To ask them what they've been up to. Go check out his video with Birmingham legend Nikola Zigic. We'll put a link in the description. Farewell, goodbye, God bless, take care.